Hi guys, today I'm here with Iris Fu. Iris is going to be a freshman at Stanford next year, and I'm going to be a freshman at Princeton University. In terms of the hoodies, Iris doesn't actually own a Stanford hoodie yet, so we decided that we'd swap for the day. Also, I applied early to Stanford and was rejected, and Iris applied early to Princeton. So we decided it might be kind of a fun thing if we did a little swap today as far as clothing goes. But yeah, today we're just going to be doing a question and answer with the questions you guys asked us on Bullseye's Instagram about the college application process, scholarships, interviews, standardized testing, and much more. So let's get into some of the questions.
Awesome. Okay, so our first question is, what were your standardized test scores and extracurriculars?
So as far as standardized test score goes, I got a 1570 on the SAT and a 36 on the ACT. I'll just talk about my main extracurriculars because those were the ones that I kind of highlighted the most on my college applications. So those were the nonprofit that I founded in 2019, which focuses on equitable education access, and it's called SEAM On. Another big one for me was speech and debate. I did that for 4 years in high school, and I was the captain my junior and senior year. And then the third one was kind of just like political involvement and activism in my community.
So for standardized test scores, I got a 35 on my ACT and a 1550 on my SAT, so slightly lower than Zoe's. And then for my extracurriculars, my main things were my main extracurricular was a project that I started. It was a video POW program connecting teens from different parts of the world. And I also went on a study abroad through a program sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. And then I also had some extracurriculars surrounding my interest in economics. So I created my school's National Economics Challenge team. We won the state round of that competition and went to the national semifinals my junior year. And then throughout the summer of my junior year, I actually wrote and published an introductory economics book. So those were
Awesome. And then I'm looking at my phone for questions. The second question we got was, would you mind sharing your GPA and what classes you took so that I can get a better idea of where I can and cannot get in next year?
Okay, so I guess first to preface that question, I think if you just challenge yourself with the classes that are offered at your school and try to get the best grades that you can get, I think you have a solid shot at all of the schools that you apply to. So I don't think you should directly compare your GPA and classes to our GPA and classes because we all come from different high schools with different contexts, and admissions officers really take that into account. So for me, I come from a pretty small public high school in a small town in Oregon, but I had a 4.0 GPA unweighted. We don't do weighted. So I had a 4.0 unweighted GPA. I took the most AP classes that I could get my hands on. So I think I took like 12 AP classes throughout high school.
So my story is kind of similar to Iris's. I also come from a small public high school. I live in rural central Idaho, so we didn't have a ton of AP classes, not a lot of research opportunities out here. But I, like Iris said, took the most rigorous course load my school has to offer. So I think my school offers like 19 APs, and I took 16 of them. I took all of the honors courses that I could. And like Iris brought up, I think schools look at you in the context of what your school has to offer. So if you don't have, 30 APs available, you obviously aren't expected to take 30 APs.
Yeah, great advice. Okay, so our third question is, what do college admissions officers look for in an applicant's essays?
I think the biggest thing is actually just being genuine. I think admissions officers get really concerned if your essay seems like, one, it wasn't written like a 17 or 18-year-old, and two, if it sounds like what they would want to hear rather than what a typical 17 or 18-year-old does. So I think the biggest thing they're looking for is for really you to be you and to be honest with who you are, your experiences. Another really important thing I think is providing them with like a basis from which they can connect with you from. So whether that's some narrative about your life, an experience you've had, a story about your community, anything like that, I think they're really looking for a foundation by which that you and this admissions officer can build a relationship in the 5 to 10 minutes that they're reading your application in. So I think that's probably what they're looking for in essays. I'm not an admissions officer, so I can't really tell you exactly what they're looking for. But that would be my best guess.
Yeah, I'm also not an admissions officer, but I do know that admissions officers want to connect with you through your essay. So make sure you write about something that's personal to you and that means a lot to you, because the genuineness that a word? Like how genuine your essay is will come through your writing. So make sure you write about something that means a lot to you. And I think that's honestly all that they look for.
And then our fourth question is, did you have extracurriculars that were a part of your theme, like what you wanted to major in? Also, how do I find extracurriculars related to my major or my theme/spike?
That's a great question. So I think I had some main themes like an economics theme and my interest in international relations and building bridges between cultures. So I was interested in, I guess, my theme. So how I found my economics extracurricular was I actually just did a Google search. I searched economics competitions for high school students, and I ended up finding the National Economics Challenge. And then from that experience, I kind of took away so I took away the fact that there was a huge gender gap in the field of economics because I was the only girl in the finals round of that competition. So from that experience, I realized that there was a problem and I wanted to address it. And that's where my other economics extracurricular with my book came from. So I think it's a mix of trying to find opportunities for yourself by just doing some Google searches or asking people in your community, and also making opportunities for yourself. So if you see a problem that relates to an academic interest of yours, then you can create something to address that problem.
So my spike or theme was definitely not as clearly defined as Iris's, but I'm really interested in engineering and STEM, and there aren't a lot of STEM opportunities at my school. Like we don't have any, research nearby, and don't live near a college. That wasn't really an option. We don't have a computer science or STEM honor society or anything. So kind of like Iris brought up, I noticed a problem in my community, and that was also a gender gap, but in terms of STEM fields. So what I did is I started a nonprofit that was kind of geared toward addressing that gap in terms of not only gender inequity, but also socioeconomic background. So we worked a lot with first gen and low income students who haven't had exposure to the elite, college admissions process and tutoring and these different subjects that can be really challenging. So I think it definitely helps to have some extracurriculars that point toward your major. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly aligned. I think Iris did a really good job of actually doing that. But I wouldn't be too concerned if your school doesn't have a ton of opportunities. Get involved in what you can. And if you see a need for something that isn't there, do it yourself. So I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. Our fifth question is, how do I find scholarships?
Scholarships are hard to find, so I definitely empathize with you there. I really, the summer before my senior year, just looked at all of the different scholarship databases and just kind of worked my way through. The ones that come to mind would be Scholarly, Chegg, Scholarship Search, Scholly, all those. So I really just looked my way through all of those. There's not really an easy way to find them, to be honest. You need to reach out to people in your community if you're looking for local scholarships, like counselors, teachers, employers in your town, and just honestly just look through the websites and see what your description would fit, what you'd be eligible for. I'd recommend applying to as many scholarships as possible. Some of them can be super competitive, so if you want to really be able to make bank, secure the bag for college, I'd just do as many as possible and put your energy into those a lot.
Yeah, and also your school's career center, if you guys have one, is a great resource as well. I know for my school, they update the scholarships available in the career center about every month. So make it a habit to go to your school's career center to check up on those and just ask your teachers, hey, do you know of any opportunities? And then yeah, your school's career center will probably provide mostly local scholarships, and those tend to be less competitive because less people are applying to them, but they do add up. So even if they are only $1,000, if you get 10 of them, that's $10,000. And the bigger ones are more national, right? The Coca-Cola scholarship, or I think there's a Burger King one. A lot with these corporations, and there are also scholarships targeting low-income students. I think there's the Gates Scholarship. There are a lot of great opportunities out there. You can just Google scholarships for whatever group that you belong to, and I'm sure you'll find a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Our sixth question is, how did you make your application stand out, and how can I stand out in the college application process? How do I build a spike?
Yeah, so I think with this question, you kind of already have the idea that a spike will help you stand out. So yeah, definitely have something that it makes your application cohesive. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense if you say that you're interested in STEM and English and space exploration and all of these things without going really in depth, because I think that would just really confuse an admissions officer as to what you're really about. But if you're able to bring those fields together in a unique way and like tie it to your personal experiences about why all those things matter to you, then I think your application would feel a lot more cohesive. And it's also really important to remember that a spike isn't just like a hard spike, I would say. So like a hard spike is like, okay, I'm interested in math. Like you could have a soft spike where it's like, I'm interested in bringing people together. And that could play out in a variety of different subject areas, if that makes sense, or like extracurriculars. So make sure you just have this theme that kind of brings your application together, and that would make it a lot more cohesive and help it stand out.
Yeah, great tips there. Kind of like Iris was talking about, I feel like I had a softer spike in my application, and that was kind of like service to community and community building. I actually didn't even figure out that I wanted to major in engineering until I was probably in my junior year of high school. So it definitely came later for me than it does for a lot of other people. But I noticed when I was like looking over my own application, what I saw stand out the most, and that was like working in my community with different local organizations. I think just kind of crafting a narrative about who you are. I forget exactly what my college counselor told me when I was getting ready to do this application process, but she said, you want your like application to feel like a gift. They unwrap the bow and they get this nice little present. And I think your essays and applications should stand out that way, in that you have a very clear narrative about who you are. Like, I am X from here, this is my background, and this is what I want to pursue. And I think the more clear you can make your narrative, the nicer you can make the gift look, that's going to be really beneficial.
Yeah. All right, the next question is, do you have to be a super high achiever to get into top?
I'm just going to be honest. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. You need to, do well in your classes, have pretty good scores, have interesting essays, participate in different extracurriculars. But I don't necessarily view myself as a high achiever in a way. I don't think a lot of students view themselves in that perspective. I think you need something special about you to get into a top school. That doesn't have to be insane achievement. You don't have to be an international math Olympiad champion or an ISEF finalist. I think you need to be unique in some way and to fit a specific niche that a college is going to be looking for. Iris and I were discussing this earlier, but the college application process is really random. It works in weird ways. And I think it's just important to recognize that the way to get in isn't necessarily being the most well-rounded applicant or the best applicant even necessarily. It's about having something unique about you in that narrative that's really going to stand out and make them want you to be a part of their community, their campus, their classrooms, their culture, etc.
Yeah, I think what Zoe said is basically the essence of it. You don't have to be the best of something, but you do have to bring a piece of diversity to their school. So the more you can make yourself, the more likely that a school is going to want you to fill that niche in their campus. Yeah, and like Zoe said, the college apps process is so weird. I got rejected from Princeton, Zoe getting into Stanford, but then we both ended up getting into each other's schools, which are into multiple great schools as well, but we did also get rejected from certain schools. So I think you just have to make yourself as I don't want to say special, but different from other people as possible, so you have the maximum chance of standing out, and that would help you a long way in getting into at least one of the top schools.
Can you share tips for how to do well in college interviews?
Practice interviewing, look up interview questions and write out your responses to them, and then practice saying them out loud. Practice it with another person, get your friend to do a mock interview with you, get your mom, your dad, your teacher, anybody, and just practice. Also, have a list of things that you want to cover in the interview. So, for example, if you have 10 things on the list and your interviewer asks you questions, you kind of start scratching them out. But say near the end of your interview, you still have 3 things on your list that you wanted to talk about, but you haven't yet. Usually the interviewer will ask you a question that's do you have anything else that you want to tell me? Or do you have any questions for me? And that's like a great opportunity to kind of just interject the last 3 points. So for example, if the interviewer asks, do you have any questions for me? You can be like, I've been involved with this, and that could be like one of your points. So what are ways that I can continue that involvement on your school's campus?
Yeah, those are great suggestions. Mine are going to be kind of similar. What I did before each interview is I would outline like my biggest values that I wanted to convey to my interviewer. I think it's like college essay guy that does like a values exercise where you can say like what the most important things to you are. So I wrote those down and I would do like 5 before my interview. Then I'd brainstorm some stories or experiences that I could share with my interviewer that related to those values and portrayed kind of how I grew, what I learned from like that experience, that kind of thing. And I just kind of like practice with my dad or with like a friend over the phone, kind of talking about those stories. I didn't like rehearse because I don't think that's necessarily what it was. It was more like, you know, this is an experience I've had. This is what I learned from it. I think too much practice isn't a good thing for interviews, just because at the end of the day, you do want to sound like original and like you haven't been planning for this moment too much, at least. But I think definitely like talk to a stranger or a friend. And I think a little bit of prep for interviews can go a really long way. So that's what I'd say.
What were your intended majors?
So my intended major, it depended on the school I applied to. It definitely varied. It was either electrical engineering, computer engineering, or computer science.
Nice. Mine were economics and international relations.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful to you all and that it shines a little bit more light on the college application process. I know it can be super challenging, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to each of us. We're always happy to help. And we're going to be producing tons of college content in the future to help you guys on your admissions process. So be sure to stay tuned and subscribe. Please go check out Iris's channel. It's really amazing. She has amazing content on there on passion projects, extracurriculars, reading her essays, and much more. So go check that out. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.